Hey! Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chelsea. If you did not know that, that means you're not subscribed, which you should do down below. Today I'm going to be doing my June reading wrap up. I'm very excited to do this video because for one, June was the first month, I think since February, that I've actually read a pretty decent chunk of books. And June was also the month that kind of got me out of a reading slump. I was pretty much in a reading slump from I think March up until like end of May. So yeah, I finally read a pretty decent amount of books. These are all the books that I read and we're gonna be talking about them today. Also, I'm definitely filming this video really early. Today is June 27th. And you're probably like, girl, why are you filming this so early? I literally work every day up until me moving out. Today I'm literally supposed to be packing and I'm filming, editing, and uploading instead. Wish me luck. I definitely probably will finish like one or two more books before the month is up, but up until June 27th, this is what I've all read. I'm just gonna get started into it. So the first book that I read, I actually read on my Kindle, which if you didn't know, I have a Kindle Paperwhite. It is honestly the best thing that I've bought. It's already paid itself over like 3 times with the amount of books that I've read on it. I just read off of the Libby app with my library card, and in all honesty, when I use my Kindle, it's mainly when I'm in phases where I don't necessarily want to read a book, but I don't want to be on my phone, because for some reason to me, being on a Kindle feels like I'm on my phone, but I am reading, and then usually that will kickstart me into picking up books from my TBR pile, which I've actually been doing a pretty good job at slimming my TBR down. It was pretty big, but I've been packing and one of my goals is to get all of my TBR books read before I move. Probably won't happen. I'll probably have a few left over, but I just don't want to move all of these books. I have in my little notebook what I thought of all the books that I read this month. So the first book that I read was Mr. Wrong Number. It was on my Kindle. It was just like a classic, cheesy, easy to read romance. I rated it 4.5 out of 5. I read it I think in one sitting. I think I read it in like 2 or 3 hours. It's really good, really easy read. Honestly, nothing super special about it. I am not the biggest fan of romance books. I think they're very repetitive, very cheesy, but when I read them here and there, I understand it, I get it. It's just not my favorite genre. That isn't like the only genre that I'll read. But with reading that, it did get me into kind of a little mood of reading more romance or reading books where, in my opinion, my favorite books are when romance is a subplot and not necessarily the main thing. But yeah, so shout out to that book because that got me out of a reading slump. So thank you. So the next book that I read after that was The Gift of Imperfections by Brené Brown. This was actually a book that I had finished reading. I didn't start it in June, but I did finish it in June. The whole point of this book is kind of talking about just living life to the fullest and not necessarily caring about like the mistakes and the little things about life. I really have been into nonfiction books. If you watched my last video, a big part of the beginning of my 2022 year was intense therapy, and Brené Brown was actually an author that my therapist recommended that I would read some of her books because I had read like Attached, The Body Keeps Score, like all of those types of books, which I am going to do a video talking about my favorite books like that. So if you would want to see that, let me know. But my therapist told me to pick up some of her books. I believe Brené Brown is a therapist, or we'll say she's a research professor, but she like studies, I don't know, she has a podcast. She's a very interesting person to read like her work. I really liked this. My favorite thing with reading books like this is they make me feel very comforted and just understood, and I'm in this phase of my life where I just want to continue to learn and to grow and be the best version of myself that I can be, and I don't know, I really liked this. I rated it a 4.75 out of 5. I probably would have rated it a 5 out of 5 if I read it faster, but if I was comparing this to like The Body Keeps Score or Attached, which are probably like my top 2 books like this, those are like 5 out of 5s for me, but this isn't necessarily as similar. Yeah, I'm gonna shut up about this book. I really liked it. Recommend it. Another cheesy romance that I had picked up, I read Just Haven't Met You Yet. So I think back in like February, Target did this buy 2 get 1 free for books, and this was one of the books that I picked up when I did that, and I picked it up because there was like no other book that I was interested in, and this one was like, okay, I know I can read this and like get through it pretty quick. I have interesting views about this book. I rated it a 2 out of 5. I don't know how to like say stuff without spoiling it, but the romance that happens in the book wasn't what I was expecting. And I know there's this one book that's going around and has like flowers all over the cover on booktube. It's going around and it's like a very like big age gap romance. I'm not a fan of that. One thing with like reading all of these like non-fiction books and everything, I've started to see how fucked up entertainment industries with like books and movies and TV shows, how they try to sell us toxic relationships. And I think that's why for so long in my life I have accepted stuff like that. And I'm not a fan of age gap stuff at all. Don't want to read anything like that. I don't think this is necessarily an age gap, but because of the way the guy was introduced, I just kept thinking of him as like this old man and I was so confused. So yeah, 2 out of 5. It wasn't necessarily bad. I just wouldn't necessarily recommend this. One problem that I was having a lot this month is that I was reading books, but I wasn't like grasping onto the story. That one I was pretty good at, like I was reading it and I was actually like in the story, not just like reading words on a page. But some of these later ones, I had a really big problem with that. I think that was kind of the first one that I read that I was just like, what the fuck am I reading? And also with me trying to slim down my TBR pile, I am kind of forcing myself to stick to reading books until they're finished, whereas if I wasn't just trying to slim down my TBR pile, I'd probably put a book down and then just go back to it later on. The next book that I read after that was also one of the books that I got during that Target sale, and it's Lucy Foley's The Guest List. I didn't mind this book. It's a thriller, sort of like mystery book. The back: the bride, the plus one, the best man, the wedding planner, the bridesmaid, all have a secret, all have a motive, but only one is a murderer. This is a multiple POV story that is constantly changing from past and present, and I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of multiple POV stories. I like to just get connected to one character and then fall in love with the other characters through that one character. I just didn't really care for this, and one thing, I think the author, this and another book that I read this month, I just didn't care for the characters, and I think that's why I didn't necessarily care for the story. It wasn't necessarily bad, and Lucy Foley also has The Paris Apartment, which is pretty much the same idea of this one, just a different, you know, scene and different characters. I do want to read that one to see if I would like that one better than The Guest List. I don't know, it looks like it would be so good, and I just didn't necessarily care for it. I rated it a 2.5 out of 5, so it's not that it was like the worst read that I've read this month, but I don't know. I'm glad that I read it. My favorite genre of books probably to read would be like fantasy or any sort of like mystery thrillers. I really like those just because, in my opinion, I want to keep reading because I want to know what the fuck is going on. That's probably why I really like the like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series a lot, is because that book is like a perfect mystery with romance as a subplot, so it's like the best of both worlds. Which, speaking of, I need to finish the last book of that series. I haven't finished it yet. The next book that I read was the Gorenevere Deception. I think that's how you say the name. When I got this book, I got it in a Barnes and Noble's like blind date with a book thing. This was the first official book this month that I read, and I could not tell you a single thing that happens in this book. I read this while I was at work, and that's probably why I didn't necessarily grasp a lot of the story. I think as I was reading it, I was like, okay, yeah, I understand what's going on, but then once I put this down and like finished the book, I was like, I have no idea what I just read. I didn't necessarily care for the characters or really any of the story. I'm pretty sure this is like a Bible retelling of a fantasy story. I'm not really sure. I probably wouldn't have picked this up if it wasn't the blind date with whatever. So I didn't necessarily have the highest standards for this. I rated it a 2.5 out of 5. I probably would rate it like a 1.75 out of 5 if I'm being like really brutal, but I don't know. It was whatever. And then if you've been anywhere on the internet this month, you've probably seen the Amazon show, The Summer I Turned Pretty, and it's actually a book series that I had already read. I think I read this when I was maybe 15 or 16. So I have like the old version of the 3 of these books. This is like all 3 books just in one, which I think this is insane because like this was a $10 thing and I'm pretty sure they're now going for like $10 or $12 per book. But I this month reread all 3 of these books, and if you have not read this yet, if you have not watched the TV show, isn't necessarily just like the book. A lot of things in the TV show are different. But if you have not seen it, if you don't want to have any spoilers, skip ahead to this time so that you don't get any spoilers. I remember the first time that I read this book, I did not care for this book series. I did not like it. And I also remembered being Team Jeremiah. I did not like Conrad in the books. Now, going to the TV show, if you are thinking, like with what I was saying earlier in the video, how I am now super critical of characters and how they treat love interests, anything, I'm the first to spot out any toxicity, any just not good things that like the media tries to sell us. Conrad is an asshole in the TV shows. Yes, I understand that like he loves her, whatever, but he does treat her like shit. If we're going at like potential and just like whatever, Cameron is the best in the TV show. I didn't really care for him in the books, but I also understand that in the TV show, like it's always gonna be Conrad. It's always meant to be Conrad. In the books, I hated Conrad, but I think that's just because when you watch the characters, it's a lot different than when you're just reading, because Conrad is an asshole in the books. Yes, he has always had a soft spot for her and whatever, but he sucks at communication. He always makes Belly feel like she's just not good enough for him and all this shit. So yeah, the first book, the actual like The Summer I Turned Pretty, was a 5 out of 5 rereading it. I loved it. I reread it literally the day after I binge watched the show. I think I finished this like entire thing within the entire series within 2 days. The second book, actually no, I just looked at my notes. I rated the first book a 4.5 out of 5. Basically the same thing. It was good. The second book, It's Not Summer Without You. This is a big spoiler. I'm gonna be honest, that entire book, I felt like nothing actually happened. The premise of the book is they're trying to find Conrad because Conrad's like missing. Spoiler alert, he's just at the beach house because he's trying to save it because his dad's trying to sell it. The entire book felt really pointless and that like nothing happened, but I still really liked it. So it was a 3.5 out of 5. The last book though, I have a problem with. I fucking hate the last book of this series. Again, big spoiler alert, she's gonna get married to one of the brothers, and it's just this whole thing where like she's like in her freshman year of college, like she is 19, and her family, the other brother, her brother, they're all telling her like, you're so young, why are you doing this? There's no reason to get married. Which I'm also like very like, I can't imagine getting married right now. Like if you're gonna be in a relationship with someone, just fucking date them. And she is just trying to prove so hard that she is an adult, and it pissed me off the entire time. I hated reading that book. It was so bad. I really hope in the show that they don't do the like wedding plot for the 3rd season if they get renewed for a 3rd season, because it's so stupid. Again, it just felt like nothing happened the entire book, and I was just getting very annoyed. And I think Belly as a character is very insufferable in the last book because she's just trying to act like she's an adult and knows what she's doing, and she obviously is just like, I don't know. I'm 21, so like reading YA right now is very like, what the fuck? I also find it very interesting thinking of like book talk and all the books that are popular now. A lot of them are books that I read when I was like 14 to like 17. Like Alex Approximately is a book that's going around because it's a summer romance, whatever. I read that when I was like 14. Like I have those books in my attic. I wouldn't have reread The Summer I Turned Pretty because I saw that it was going around and I saw the TV show was coming out and I was like, I don't remember liking this. I don't know why anyone cares about this. But then I rewatched the show and I was like, Conrad has a lot of red flags. It's a good thing red is one of my favorite colors. I just looked down at the notes that I have for the last book. It says more than I could. And then the last book that I read this month, or that I've finished this month so far, is The Atlas 6. I had very high expectations for this book. So I have been reading through all of BookTube's recommendations from like last fall, because last fall I was still in college and the last thing I wanted to do was read for fun. I remember this book being hyped up so much. I got this book for Christmas, and in all honesty, it took me forever to pick it up because the pages are really fucking big and there's a lot of words on each page, and the book is, I think, like 380 pages long. Not that that's really that long, but it felt like this would take forever to get through. I read a review of this on Goodreads where someone said that the author makes it seem like in the writing that the characters are very interesting and that the characters are just like one of a kind, super cool, whatever, but they actually aren't. And I agree with that 100%. I did not care about the book until maybe the last like 50 pages. I could not tell you which character has which power. I could not differentiate the characters at all, except for maybe like one of them, maybe two of them. I don't know what the fuck happened in this book. I literally read this and immediately Googled what the plot of this book was because I was like, I have no idea what I just read. I don't remember what I rated this, and I literally finished this yesterday. I rated this a 1 out of 5. I had such high expectations because of BookTube talking so highly about this, and I don't know what I missed. So this was like the one book this month that I was reading this and it was just words on a page. I could not get immersed in the world. I just did not care for it at all. So yeah, we're ending on a great note. But actually we probably will end on a pretty good note. This month, this is the book that I'm reading right now. I haven't finished it yet, but like I said, I'm filming this super early into June, so I probably will finish this in June. I'm finishing the last book in the A Touch of Darkness series, I believe it is. It's a Persephone Hades retelling, and this is A Touch of Malice. I've liked it so far. I remember the reason I didn't pick the third book up after immediately reading the second book is because Persephone in the second book was really fucking annoying and I hated her character. But I've had enough of like a break from her character to start reading that again, and I've liked it so far, so. But yeah, that was all of the books that I read this month. If there are any books that you've seen going around on like Book Talk, BookTube, anything that you think that I would like, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. I will see you guys hopefully very soon with a vlog or another book video. I love you. Thank you for watching.